with our webinar this morning. Today's webinar focuses on student learning objectives within educator evaluations to help measure the student growth portion of the evaluation. We do have some documents and links available for you at the bottom of the screen. Please take advantage of those while we have those up for you today. We are looking through the participant list. It looks like a lot of repeat webinar guests today. Thank you again for joining us. If you're new to our webinars, this is a series of webinars designed to support school and district leaders with their efforts to develop their local educator workforce. We, of course, believe that educator evaluation is a key tool in developing your educator workforce and hope to provide some strategies today that will help you to continue to reflect and refine your systems to have that mindset of continuous improvement and grow your systems over time and really refine your practices to make sure they're helping reach the goals that you have in your system and support your educators to continue to grow their practice. Again, we really just want to thank you for joining us today. We look forward to sharing some information with you. Welcome again. We are going to have a Q&A feature pod that's open on the right-hand side of your screen. That's where you can post any questions that might come up during the course of the webinar today. We're going to try to answer as many of those questions live as we can. We're also going to pause throughout the webinar to make sure we provide some input on any of those questions. If for any reason there's some questions that maybe need some further research or need to be built out further, we will definitely do that and send those out following the webinar to anyone that's participated today. Your participation today is, your attendance is being tracked for sketch credit. So at the conclusion of the webinar series next month, we have one more. Following that, we'll turn in all the attendance information, and anyone that's interested in sketch credit will receive that verification email from MOEX to complete that sketch process. So if that's important to you, know that that's going to be coming to you after the conclusion of our series next month. And again, just a reminder to use the Q&A to interact with us as much as possible as things come up. We'll also pop up some chat windows throughout the webinar today to get some responses from you around some focused questions around the content today. So look forward to your interactions during the webinar. Taking a look at what we're going to do today, we'll do a real quick overview of educator evaluation in Michigan. We're going to talk about what are these things called student learning objectives and why should we consider using them in our local context. We're also going to talk about what the MDE recommendations are for districts and PSAs that are going through the process of implementing an SLO system. We're going to talk about some of the resources that have been developed that will support implementation, along with a tool that's been developed to help measure and have a uniform and consistent way to score SLOs. We'll demonstrate that tool for you today. And we're also going to highlight some exemplar district practices from around our state. And we're going to close our webinar today by sharing an opportunity for an upcoming professional learning workshop that will be coming up here in July that we will talk to you about to learn more if you're interested in bringing a team and learning more about student learning objectives. All of our work today really focuses on the strategic goal number 3 of our top 10 in 10 strategic plan, which is really about developing a high quality and collaborative educator workforce. We fully believe that every investment that we make in improving the performance and the quality of educators will result in high impact benefits for student learning. So we really believe in the importance of developing our educators to help them to provide the best instruction and support to Michigan students. It is really our goal here within the Office of Educator Excellence to help you look at your educator evaluation systems so that you not only will meet the minimum requirements defined by legislation, but that you can also take it a step further to look about how to really leverage these systems to meet your school improvement goals, to make connections to professional learning and professional development for your staff, and really look at it as a real leverage point to get to the student outcomes that you're looking for to improve student learning. So we think that educator evaluation ties in nicely with developing your workforce and supporting your overall school and system goals. So just some of our priorities here when it comes to educator evaluation. MDE really values those 3 words that are in that first bullet when it comes to evaluations, that our evaluations are rigorous, transparent, and fair. We believe, and I think our webinar today will demonstrate how the SLO process can support your system towards moving towards those 3 goals of having a rigorous, transparent, and fair evaluation system. We also believe that everything about educator evaluation should inform and improve what happens in the classroom, because if it's not doing that, then it's probably missing the mark of what the educator evaluation system is really designed for and could really help with. We also want to talk about how to develop goals, some common goals to align the definitions of success for students, teachers, and administrators, so that there's some common alignment there, so that we have some common goals to strive for to feel our success and our accomplishments. And we also believe educator evaluation helps facilitate a continuous improvement process for educators and really for school systems as a whole. So we think educator evaluation can help support that continuous improvement process through goal setting as well as strategic planning. Now, specifically to student growth, which is really the focus area of our webinar today, what are our priorities there? MDE believes, again, that there's space to honor teacher autonomy, decision-making, and involvement in this process, while also developing systems that provide comparable results to help districts make decisions when it's important to compare performance of teachers. We also acknowledge that there is no perfect student growth model. All of them have benefits as well as drawbacks. So our role here at the department when we work with districts and school teams is to help tease out those benefits of different approaches as well as identify any drawbacks, so that districts and teams can make the most informed decisions possible to maximize those benefits as well as to counteract those drawbacks or be sure that they can live with any of the drawbacks of any of these approaches. But we're going to present the SLO model today as one approach to a student growth model that provides some unique benefits that could support your system. Well, just a quick educator evaluation overview. These 2 pie charts demonstrate the legislative requirements for the inclusion of student growth and student performance information into the educator evaluations. So as we look at these, we have 2 pie charts defining on the left the teachers who are teachers of record for English language arts and math in grades 4 through 8, also known as our tested grades and subjects. Those teachers will have student growth data directly assigned to them based on their students' performance on the M-STEP assessment. So for students in those tested grades and subjects, our current legislation requires that those teachers include state assessment or the M-STEP student growth data as half of their student growth portion of their evaluation. So for all educators in the state of Michigan, our current legislation requires that 60% of the evaluation be based on the observation tool, the teacher evaluation rubric, while the other 40% comes from the student growth data. So when we're talking about that left-hand pie chart there, and we're looking at the teachers that are the teachers of record in the M-STEP tested grades, those teachers would have a 60% of their evaluation be based on the observation tool, and the 40% based on student growth would be split into 2 equal chunks, 20% based on that state assessment student growth, and 20% being based on student growth measures that are decided or selected by the local education association, the district, or PSA. Now, for teachers who are not teachers of records in grades 4 through 8, they are not legislatively required to include state assessment growth data in their evaluation. They are still required to have 40% of their evaluation be based on student growth information, though. So if you're looking at the right-hand pie chart, again, it's still that 60-40 breakdown, but this time the entirety of that 40% falls under the local decision-making for selecting the assessments and the student growth measures that will be used for that portion. It is important to mention at this time that there is legislation, proposed legislation in the works right now. It's already been passed through the Senate, has now moved to the House for review and voting, Senate Bills 102 and 122. And what those bills would essentially do is they would keep the same. It would change instead of the 60-40 breakdown. It would have us maintain the 75-25 breakdown that we've had the last few years, with 75% of the evaluation be based on the observation tool, and 25% being based on the student growth measure. So. Okay, with a potential giving districts more time to develop systems that will allow the transition to this 40% model. So we will keep you posted on if that legislation goes through completely. But regardless of that, there's another legislative change. The idea of developing a system around student learning objectives is still very relevant, whether we're talking about 40% of the evaluation or 25% of the evaluation. Really just the weighting changes, but the process that could be developed through SLOs could support regardless of any future changes. So still very relevant content regardless of if we see any of these proposed changes in the future. So we're going to pause here for just a minute and take our first opportunity to interact a little bit. So we want you to reflect a little bit and think about your current practices for measuring student growth for educator evaluation in your system. We would love to see you take a moment to comment here on some things that are working well, whether it's process or assessments or collaboration that's working really well for your district around student growth. And also an opportunity to identify any growth areas or changes that you'd like to make. Maybe, again, some of those same ideas. We want to select a different assessment. We want to have more common practices. We want to increase the collaboration around these things. So I'm going to pause for a minute here and just take a moment to reflect and tell us what's working well, as well as any growth areas for your system, specifically to the measurement of student growth for educator evaluation. We'll pause and be back with you here in a minute. Please keep typing. If you're not currently typing, please take a moment to read through some of the thoughtful comments from the educators around the state. I'm sure you will find some commonalities there to maybe the successes and challenges that face educators as we implement these complex systems, the educator evaluation. See a lot of successes out there around feeling good about some assessments that have been selected, developing processes for collaboration, an increased focus on assessment and common goals, also identifying the need for ongoing staff development around these processes and these systems and assessment literacy probably in general. We see that as a common need for lots of educators, or probably all educators, to continue to grow. I also see some things outlined here about the challenges that the legislation creates with having those tested grades and subjects and required assessments for those grade levels, but not required assessments for other grade levels, and how to navigate that in a fair and transparent way. Yep. Lots of really good ideas here, and also some of the challenges, again, that face as far as collecting information, doing this in a streamlined and efficient way, getting the right people at the table to be involved. Really good thoughts here. Again, please take some time to read through. We're going to leave this chat up here for a minute so that people can keep reading through. And we're going to keep clicking through some slides here, but don't lose sight of this chat, because we're going to leave it up here just so you can capture it. This is also something that we can share following the webinar too, so that you have some more time to review those responses from the peer group around the state. So I'm going to talk a little bit now exactly to define what student learning objectives are and some of the benefits for their use. So very simply put, a student learning objective is a course-long academic goal. It's a goal set by a teacher or a team of teachers that's standards-based, that has specific growth targets for students, and it's really the intent of this thing, since it's part of the evaluation process, is to help determine what the teacher's impact was on the student learning within that time of instruction. And student learning objectives are just one of multiple measures that could be used to measure student growth. So this, again, is just one approach, or it can be a portion of your approach for your student growth ratings. But it does provide a systematic method to set goals, to determine assessments, and to score and measure that impact of teacher performance. So what does the student learning objective evaluation cycle look like? You'll recognize this chart and probably make lots of connections with other cyclical problem-solving processes you've seen. It looks a lot like the school improvement problem-solving process, as well as MTSS problem-solving process. It involves with, at the top there, starting with gathering and studying student information to help us set academic goals, determine standards we want to work on, and those are going to go into the development of the SLO. The SLO does have an approval process to get feedback and to be reviewed and approved by evaluators. There's also points within the SLO process to receive feedback, to meet and discuss the progress of students. And finally, towards summative evaluation time, end of year activities, there's the process of scoring and discussing the SLO, which then loops right into the next section of student data gathering and goal setting. So again, a cyclical process that can continue to feed itself and support the educators with ongoing goal setting and continuous improvement. So what's it take to write an SLO? These 8 components are defined within some of our guidance documents and resources that we have linked for you today. But really the 8 components, I'm going to go through this chart on the right here, is determining the interval of instruction. So what's the time period we'll be measuring the teacher's impact? Is it going to be in a semester-long SLO? Is it going to be a shorter time frame than that? Who are the students that we're going to include in the SLO? Are we going to include all students? Is this going to be a focused subgroup of students? What learning standards are we really going to focus on? In our chat earlier, I saw some comments about PLCs working together to define priority standards. This is an excellent place to start for identifying those standards. Assessments need to be defined as part of the SLO process that will be used to measure that student growth and learning. Also, as part of that, what baseline data do we have access to that can tell us where our students are now that will help us set more informed goals and set those appropriate growth targets for where they should be by the end of that interval instruction. So the baseline data feeds into helping us set growth targets, and we're setting those growth targets and then describing our rationale for how we set those growth targets. What tool or what resource or what thinking did we use to apply where students should grow? And we have a tool and resource that we're going to share with you in a little while that will help with that. And then also there's a space in there to identify any specific instructional strategies or interventions that will be used, that will be tweaked, that will be adjusted to try to get better results than maybe what we've received the last time we worked with this set of standards. Steps for writing an SLO, a lot of these are going to be overlap between the last slides, but we do really like to emphasize steps 4 and 5 here as being some of the steps that require sometimes the most heavy lift of this process and some really important times to have collaboration around departments or PLC teams. Number 4 is about reviewing and selecting assessments that are most appropriate, and 5 is that idea of collecting baseline data to set appropriate goals. These are hard things to do for teachers to do on their own. So again, another major benefit of SLOs, it can support collaboration, and it can help with these difficult steps of the process, which is selecting the assessments and developing good goals based on baseline data. So anytime we're looking at something, it's always nice to have examples. So that's what this slide is really intended to do. There's some national repositories of SLO examples for the centers from the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders. There's examples from lots of different states there that we have linked, as well as some specific state departments of education that have done a lot of work with SLOs. We also have some Michigan-based examples there at the bottom. The very last link is an SLO repository that we're trying to build here through MDE, as we work with different districts to try to highlight some of the great work that they're doing. So we'd encourage you to check that one out. And there's also another Michigan-specific link there to help you see about how Michigan educators are developing and writing SLOs. So again, one more time here, why SLOs? Why are these something we should consider? These are not a mandated process. There's not something that's defined in legislation that must be done. It is mentioned in legislation as an option, and these are models that are gaining support from around the state, or from around the country, I should say, with more than 25 states mandating or recommending the use of SLOs as part of their student growth evaluation for teacher evaluation. So lots of supports and lots of thinking have gone into this model. It's not perfect, but it does provide lots of opportunity for teacher autonomy, for developing a system that's uniform, and that really has some good process pieces in place to support your work. Thank you for again for joining us today. I'm Joe Priest. I presented this first part of this webinar. I'm going to hand it off now to Brian Lloyd, who is our consultant here that really focuses on student growth objectives, or student growth for educator evaluation, and is really an expert on the SLO process. So he's going to share a little bit more with you today, and we look forward to you sticking with us for the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Joe. So to further investigate some reasons why SLO, there was a national survey that was done by the National Center for Education Statistics, and they wanted to collect information from teachers about a variety of different topics, and one of those topics is to gather information on what practices within the schools that teachers had influence on. So teachers were asked whether they had influence on setting performance standards at their school, establishing curriculum at their school, determining content of in-service professional development, hiring full-time teachers, and whether they had any influence on in the evaluation of teachers. And so teachers from across the country responded to this survey and provided answers to what they had influences on. So 81.3 teachers across the country, those sampled, said that they had influence on setting performance standards. 84% said that they had influence on establishing curriculum. 81.5 said that they had influence on what in-service professional development programs were implemented. Over 60% said they had influence on what teachers were hired into their schools. Less than 50%, in comparison to these other practices, less than 50% of teachers said that they had any influence on the evaluation of teachers within their schools. So a recent study that was done by Ingersoll and others in 2017 found that teachers' roles in establishing school improvement planning and school discipline procedures are strongly related to improve student achievements in ELA and math. So we have provided, MDE has provided guidance that the integration of educator evaluation and student learning objectives with the school improvement process is one of the critical considerations for school districts across the state and PSAs. So if that is something that both Michigan Department of Ed and national experts across the country say is important, then including teachers in developing school improvement planning, and if educator evaluations is integrated with school improvement planning, then having teachers as part of your process of developing your educator evaluation systems and including student growth, including teachers as a part of the process, and including teacher voice as part of the process, and determining those systems does seem fairly important. This report found that schools often don't emphasize the leadership elements that are most strongly related to improve student achievement and involving teachers in important aspects such as setting academic achievement goals, which is what SLOs are about, and as well as the determining behavioral rubrics really are associated with some profound effects on improving ELA and math scores within the districts, within the schools. So one of the aspects of SLOs that districts have found most appealing is finding a way to balance data comparability. So knowing basically that a student growth score of 65 means that a student made more growth than a student growth score of 50. That's really important. If we want to use student growth as an indicator of of our success criteria, right? Of how much, what is the impact of the instruction that we had to help facilitate that continuous improvement, then having good data that does provide accurate and comparable results is really important. While also balancing that data comparability with teacher autonomy, with that teacher voice that we were just talking about. So SLOs don't determine what that balance is, but it does provide school districts with a systematic way of collaboratively deciding what that balance is going to be. So there are some districts who are implementing SLOs that are going to set SLOs by a teacher or teacher team using teacher-created assessments. There are some districts implementing SLOs that are going to have the LEA determine everything for teachers, which is, you know, everyone is using these common assessments, and here's the growth targets you're going to use with those assessments. And I would say most school districts are implementing SLOs are going to be somewhere in between that, right? That you can develop a list of assessments that can be used within SLOs, and then either common growth targets for those SLOs or the use of common assessments and the growth targets that are set by a teacher or set by teachers or teacher teams. So there's different practices, but the important part is developing a systematic collaborative process that are agreed upon by all the key stakeholders within the school system. So specifically for MDE's recommendations for the implementation of student learning objectives, we've developed we've produced an implementation guide. A guidance document for the implementation of student learning objectives. Within this guidance document, we've set forth 11 different decision points for school districts and PSAs for implementing student learning objectives. Some of these decision points are more difficult than others, but each one of these decision points are going to be made by any district about student growth in general, not just with SLOs. Some of these decision points will be made in absentia of information, right? If you don't make a decision purposefully, you're still going to make a decision. It just may or may not be an informed decision. So thinking through these different decision points when developing a system for measuring student growth is seen to be good practice because, again, making informed decisions, regardless of what those decisions are, having all the information at your disposal to be able to make the best decision for your district is really what we try to advocate here for at MDE. So on page 33 of this SLO implementation guidance document, we provide a table of recommendations for districts seeking to implement SLOs. And just briefly, 5 of those with recommendations within that table involve districts integrating student learning objectives with school improvement. So we touched on this earlier, but we really see educator evaluations in general and SLOs in specific as a vehicle that will accomplish your school improvement goals, right? If you have student growth goals that are not consistent or aligned with your school improvement plans, you have some people in your boat who are rowing north, some people in your boat that are rowing west. What does that do to your boat? You're just going to spin, and you're going to have some wasted effort and resources that we do not have enough resources in the school systems as it is. So making sure that we have alignment between what we're attempting to accomplish as a school and what we're attempting to accomplish as teachers is really important. There's also recommendations for teachers to work together to write SLO in teams. So these SLOs, we work with a lot of school districts within workshops and in a variety of different settings to write these SLOs and help districts write these SLOs and help teachers write these SLOs. And it's hard, especially when you're doing it the first time, the first 2 times, first 2 or 3 times maybe. It's harder than it looks. So teachers working together with a lot of support from administration for this new adult behavior, which is always difficult, to work together to develop these SLOs is one recommendation. Also, districts adopt individual accountability approach to SLO scoring. So and this is pervasive to all measurement of student growth for educator evaluation. It's the teacher's impact and not the entire building score, right? The impact that a teacher had within their classroom on their students that should impact a rating. So we're attempting to measure instructional impact, and so measuring what the impact is of what occurred within that classroom is going to be critical if that is our goal for measurement of student growth. So districts select appropriate content and aligned assignments for teachers. Again, this student growth data has to be what teachers represent data that teachers value, right? It represents data that teachers value to inform their instruction. If we want educator evaluations to facilitate a continuous improvement practice, because if we use non-meaningful academic data, then it's not going to be impactful for making changes and tweaking practices in order to get the best results that we possibly can. Building, again, this is a lot about collaboration, building teams working together, district teams working together, and this is why working in PLCs is something that districts have found to be effective. This is a great marriage between professional learning communities and the time that can be spent. And defining success criteria. SLOs, in essence, right, are finishing the sentence. I consider myself successful as a teacher if my students, and you finish that sentence with data. That's essentially what student learning objectives are. How would you define when your students are successful within your classroom using academic data? There's a lot more to success than academic data, but it is an important part of what we do as educators, and so being able to describe that using academic terms is one important area of defining that success criteria. And SLOs need to be a problem-solving process, so making sure that SLO has an approval process and is also recursive and collaborative again. And then also using data that has reliability, making sure that we use good data to make our decisions. So we talk a lot and almost ad nauseum about the integration of continuous improvement, how important centering all of your practices, prioritizing continuous improvement as the center foci for educator evaluation. And we have two general rules of thumb that if you follow, you're probably following MDE guidance. Number one, are you facilitating continuous improvement? And number two, are you using common sense? So that's, as we're talking with districts across the state, those are two things that are very important. Looking at this through the lens of continuous improvement, our guidance does hopefully make more sense. Integrating the outcomes of teacher frameworks, observation tools, right? Danielson, 5E+, Thoughtful Classroom, Marzano, integrating how we've defined good instruction through these frameworks, which is the purpose of using the frameworks, in observations with professional learning opportunities that are aligned to areas that are identified using your frameworks. This is a critical component to using educator evaluations to improve practice, right? Identifying our strengths, identifying our weaknesses, and then using those to develop plans to how can we tweak our practice to get a little bit better next year. The inclusion of student growth does a couple of things for us, right? When used, student growth should never be used in isolation, ever. And using student growth in isolation is not good practice. But including student growth along with our instructional framework, our observation tools, to introduce student voice into feedback of the conversation. Right? So we say, okay, we're going to develop this plan. We expect this plan. With good instruction, we're going to have increased or improved student outcomes. That's our hypothesis. That's why we're doing what we're doing, right? That's the purpose of educator evaluation. That's the purpose of these feedback cycles. But knowing whether or not the students were successful with the adult plan, with the adult actions within the classroom, if you don't involve the student voice in the form of that student growth. What impact did this have on the students? You don't know whether you're successful, and you don't know you've lost the ability to recognize when student academic achievement outcomes have improved based on that practice. So to use student growth data, the use of student growth data, find out whether or not what you tweaked did improve scores is critical. The use of student growth data, and when we talk about student growth data and negative outcomes, is when student growth data is used as a gotcha for bad practice. So this goes again back to priorities and how you conceptualize educator evaluation in general and student growth in particular. Is if your mindset is catching people in bad practice, then this is not going to make sense to you. But if your focus again is on continuous improvement, then that is going to be more consistent with MBE guidance. Educators need to feel safe to try new strategies. Classrooms need to be a safe place for students to try new things in order to improve their outcomes. Educators, teachers, need to feel safe to try new strategies in an effort to improve and tweak their practices in order to improve. So student growth should provide an opportunity to recognize when those tweaks are successful, recognize when the tweaks aren't necessarily successful, so that we continue to try and have that safety to try new things, and but also recognize when those improvements have occurred. So that leads us to our next chat opportunity to talk about the practices that we have within our schools. So if you could, please use there we go, the chat feature again, and to describe within your districts, how does your district use educator evaluation, observation tools, and student growth to target the professional learning that teachers receive? Number one. Number two, how does your district use educator evaluation systems to recognize when improved practices in student achievement outcomes occur? And we'll give some time for everybody to respond. I think this is a good opportunity for us to learn from other districts across the state about what practices that they engage in. Okay, thanks everybody for responding. This was really valuable information for us to hear and for other districts across the state to to see as well. The integration of professional learning is really important, and having thoughtful decisions about what and using data to drive professional learning is going to be critical to the facilitation of continuous improvement practices. It looks like your responses are really reflecting that. So appreciate those all responses. I'll leave these responses up as we to continue forward for a little bit. So now we're going to talk about some of the resources for SLO implementation that MD has provided districts, just to bring awareness. We've developed a number of different resources for SLOs, for the use of SLOs, implementation of SLOs, including that SLO guidance document. If you go to the web link that's at the bottom of the screen, that will take you to a website where you can find these resources. If you click on the student growth tile at this website. But the implementation guidance document that we described earlier, an FAQ for SLOs, a template that if your teachers fill out this template, it would help them write a student learning objective, a fidelity checklist for the completion of an SLO, an SLO student growth calculator tool to determine student growth ratings, to help districts determine student growth ratings based on student growth data, a set of instructions with detailed step-by-step instructions with pictures of exactly what to click on to help districts use this tool, and then an instructional video that will walk people through the use of this tool if they would like to so choose to use. So real briefly, the SLO template that we have that can be downloaded from our website walks school districts through the steps that are required for writing an SLO. Defining student population, interval of instruction, defining or determining what standards or competencies would need to be established in order to set the success criteria for the teachers. And again, working within a group to determine this with administrator feedback is very important. Baseline data, what assessments that you use, what are your student growth targets, why did you pick those targets, and what instructional strategies or interventions are you going to use to try to get a little bit better, again, with that focus on continuous improvement. And then we mentioned before that SLO Student Growth Calculator tool. So I'm going to bring up that Student Growth Calculator tool to demonstrate a very short, broad overview of that Student Growth Calculator tool that's available on our website. This calculator tool, of course, was developed to help educators who don't have student growth data that's readily available to them. So what is a year's worth of growth? What is adequate growth for social studies? I'm still attempting to find an assessment that provides good guidance for what is good growth in social studies assessment. So this tool was designed to be used with a wide variety of assessments, whether they be a teacher team that develops assessment, whether it would be a common assessment across the district, whether it be a wide variety of districts. But it was intended to be used for districts for subjects other than ELA and math, because there are assessments that do provide that guidance. But for the vast majority of subjects that we have within our schools, there isn't that guidance available. So, and again, this tool is developed in a way that isn't conceptually similar to a lot of other ways. This tool is designed with almost exclusively with the thought of continuous improvement in mind, right? So this tool doesn't tell you how much growth that you made in comparison to teachers in East Grand Rapids or West Bloomfield. This tool is designed to say, okay, how much student growth did my students make last year or the year before? Okay, how they made this much growth. Now, my success criteria is, did my students make at least that much growth or more? Right? And so it really puts all of the emphasis on this continuous improvement. Are my students improving as I'm tweaking? Okay, I'm going to try to use this new student engagement strategy. What kind of impact does that have on the scores that I got? And I got these scores last year. Now, did my students make that much growth this year? And that's a good criteria rather than trying to compare your student scores against other teachers in Texas or Oklahoma or in other places within the state. So what you would do is you would include, copy and paste the pre-test scores and the post-test scores from last year or 2 years ago if you'd like. So you copy and paste those scores, and what that does is it automatically calculates differentiated ranges of scores. So for this teacher last year, the students who scored in their classroom or their set of classrooms between the first and 20th percentiles within their class, they had a score range between 15 and 33. Well, students who had a score between 15 and 33, they had an average score change of 35.3. So Jane Smith has a score of 22 this year. That we know from previous year or previous years that students who scored in that range had a score growth of 35.3. So if Jane Smith achieved a score below what we would expect given how students have scored within this classroom in previous year or years, then they would have not met the objective. If they scored above it, they would have met that objective. And so these, the totals of whether students have met or not met these scores, that is how you determine your success criteria. And you can see here then that the percent of students who meet these objectives determine what your rating score is. And if you set, you can set, and you would set this at a district level, the percent of students that you want to meet prior year averages within these differentiated ranges. 65 or more would be a 4, 45% or more would be a 3 because we allow teachers the benefit of the doubt. There's differing cohorts and they may have differing growth, so give teachers the benefit of the doubt. 35% or more would be a 2, and underneath 35% being that the averages would result in a 1. So this is something that's editable. Then can be changed by district. So this provides you with a way of using differing assessments that can be selected by the teacher, which is the most difficult part of measuring student growth, determining what assessments that you use. But using common growth targets, again, finding a way to balance teacher autonomy with data comparability with teacher autonomy. So. All right, getting back. Now, it's also important, I think, to know that there are a number of different exemplar practices that are being done across the state. Wayne Reese has developed an excellent student growth measurement, a set of professional learning, online modules, and a guidance document. SI Timeline, they have some very good guidance on educator evaluation and SLOs. Traverse Bay Area ISD has developed an excellent set of training modules for SLOs. Mesa's done some excellent work. Maya for teachers who are in performance art, they have done some excellent, developed some excellent guidance for measuring student growth for use with educator evaluation. We've developed those Michigan examples of SLOs that I encourage you to check out. Not only check out, but if you're developing, if you're writing, your teachers are writing good SLOs, please upload those SLOs to this example. The more examples we have from excellent educators across the state, the better off our state is going to be. And then these districts have developed some excellent practices around measurement of student growth. I don't think any district would say at this point that they've developed the perfect system. But there's some districts that have been working on this for a while and have made some discoveries through trial and error that I think have improved some practices. We also have done 2-day workshops for school districts across the state. These workshops are for teacher leaders, for building administrators, and for central office administrators to get together, sit around the same table, and hear the same information, to work together to develop a student growth measurement system, a student growth system, to help define success criteria for their students, for their teachers. It's been very, very well received, very well attended, and our next 2-day workshop is planned for July 31st and August 1st from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Crown Plaza in Lansing. So we get guided engagements and SLOs, as well as some other student growth practices as well, and some guidance for the measurement of student growth using state assessment as well. We do have a webinar that's coming up here in the near future, and it's going to be the last webinar that we have within our Educator Workforce series. And that webinar is going to be on recruiting educators for open positions, so there'll be registration coming out soon. Again, I really appreciate your time, your thoughtfulness, your interaction. We learn from the feedback that we receive, and we incorporate that into our guidance. And the more feedback that we hear from you, the better our guidance is. And we really appreciate your time and your participation in this webinar and in the webinars within the series. And I really want to thank you for attending this webinar and for your participation today. Thank you very much.